before you to move over to the commissioners, if I may also inform you that certain videos of campaign rallies were watched by the commission, where the statement, the Chamisa statement is one yes, certain, yes.
Well, before I answer, I just want to appreciate your understanding of that, so that I can give you a very comprehensive answer.
Yeah, we have made to understand that it's like spoiling the cat.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm just saying this because we want to contextualize things. And I don't want to be given vague and embarrassing questions. I want questions that are valid, and so that I give you valid.
I was saying, advising you that certain videos where this statement was made were shown to the commission. If you want to comment on that, it's not a question actually.
Okay, thank you. I know, I appreciate that they watched some of the rallies. I'm very honored. Thank you very much. And I hope that they appreciated how excellent our campaign was. Thank you very much. But I hope it will come as a question so that I'm able to answer.
It's all right. I will now end the whole Honorable Chair and members of the
just maybe to do justice.
Witness, I no questions.
Sorry, just to do justice to you, because you said it's not a question, but I think it's fair for me to contextualize that perhaps your understanding was not properly located in what I had said. If you look at the Chamisa context, it was in the context of making sure that
also send inside.
Well, this statement is very clear. This statement does not say to people, be violent on a particular day, in particular on the 1st of August. It does also not say that be violent to the extent of shooting people. I don't take this to say I'm the one who incited those who used guns to then kill people, because I have no capacity to incite any soldier, especially to be violent or to use violence against any citizen. So whatever statement I made is almost like the Boram Sango statement.
Boram Sango statement, meaning you can vote for another candidate.
Well, if I may also say, it's almost like the statement "Idife." Yeah. What does it mean?
Idife, meaning Idiu. Without doubt, resoundingly,
I want to just say that the Jecha Musadza, Sadza is supposed to be a finished product. Now, you can't say that to put sand in the Sadza, to use your language, when the Sadza has not been prepared. You only are able to then put the sand in the Sadza post a declaration of a false result. That is the context. So we could not have done anything before the announcement of the result. We could only do something after the announcement of the result. And what we did is constitutional. We have continued to do that. That's why we went to the Constitutional Court. What did we do to put sand in the Sadza? We delayed the inauguration of Mr. Mnangagwa. What is putting sand in the Sadza? We have confused Mr. Mnangagwa's plan to have an elaborate scheme of rigging the election, to the extent that up to today, if you were to whisper to him, well, how many votes did you get? You say, I was declared by the Constitutional Court. That is the sand in the Sadza. And we are very clear about that. Sand in the Sadza is to make sure that you will not have it your way if you rig an election. It was conditional upon declaring a false result. And what we did after the declaration of a false result is there for all to see. We went to the Constitutional Court. We are in the African Court even now. We are even continuing to talk about political dialogue. We are engaging the international community to say the election in Zimbabwe is disputed. Something is rotten in Denmark. In this case, something is rotten in Harare in Zimbabwe. That is our position.
Thank you very much, Chamisa, for your presentation. I will now ask my fellow commissioners if they have any clarifications.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, also Chamisa, for your. Thank you very much, Advocate Nelson for your eloquent presentation. It was a great pleasure listening to you. I have a few points that I would want you to clarify. I think mostly in terms of meaning. The first one was made on the 9th of June 2018, where I think listening to the videos like we did, you alluded to the fact that if Emerson is to get 20% of the vote, then the whole country should be set on fire. Is it what could be your translation?
Well, I'm not so sure
to that.
No, it's a false premise and it's a false question. Because I'm not so sure where you got it. I would never say such a thing. To talk about setting the whole country on fire. If anything in the context of percentages, I've said, if Mr. Mnangagwa gets that percentage, I would give him my sister. But to say that the whole country will be set on fire, what kind of fire?
That is what I wanted to say.
Well, I don't know the context of that. Perhaps you got a doctored evidence. I'm not so sure what evidence you are using, but I would have wanted. That's why I've said to the commission, please favor me with the statements that are alleged to have been said by myself. You have been my lecturer. You know that I'm not that stupid. I'm sure you know that. I would not say such stupid statement.
Yes, this is why
and they would have arrested
to clarify.
They would have arrested me, or they would have summoned me to just say, Mr. Chamisa, you've said something. Well, they've done it in the past.
Yeah.
But that was never said, and that will never be said by myself.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. The other aspect that requires clarification is that there is another one we watched where...
in fact, on that one, Dr. Manyero, I just want to say, on the contrary, statements that should have caught your eye and your imagination are statements from Mungwe, the former governor, who said that soldiers will shoot people in and that's what happened. Mkupe, who is a senior official who was the former deputy minister of finance, also said that Chamisa, the soldiers will not allow Chamisa to be a head of state in this country. Yes. They will do whatever it takes to make sure that this will be done. Now, to then say, Mr. Chamisa, you said that the whole country will be set on fire. Was the whole country set on fire after an announcement of the election? If the whole country was set on fire before the announcement of the election, it had nothing to do with me because I only spoke in the context of the announced election result.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. The other issue would have been where they seem to, I mean, you seem to have said that there would be more demonstrations. And that I mean, if there would be any resistance there, I mean, you would shut the whole country down. What I'm looking for is probably the interpretation of that.
Dr. Manyero, you don't even need any interpretation. I'm armed with this constitution, and I must read for the benefit of our great commissioners. Section 59. Every person has the right to demonstrate and present petitions, but these rights have to be exercised peacefully. Every person includes you and me. We can demonstrate, both of us. If we have anything we are not happy about, it's allowed as per the Constitution. So demonstrating is not a problem. Demonstrating and demonstrating is a problem. I also want you to go to section 67. Because I'm a lawyer, so I want to make sure that the law is always covering me. I would never utter a statement that I know a law is not going to be defended. And I'm also one of the finest lawyers in the country. It's known by, that's why my colleagues always also want his services. Because he's one of the finest lawyers. Section 67, subsection 3. In fact, subsection 2D, paragraph D. Subject to this constitution, every Zimbabwean, and that includes Mr. Chamisa, that includes MDC people, that includes ZANU-PF people, every Zimbabwean citizen has the right, D, to participate individually or collectively in gatherings or groups in any other manner in peaceful activities to influence, challenge, or support policies of government or any political or whatever cause. Our cause is political. Yes. And we will always use this constitution to advance that cause. I listened to Mr. Mnangagwa over the weekend. He knows that the constitution does allow us. He was saying, Mr. Chamisa, I've given you democracy, you are abusing it. I said, you are not Father Christmas. Democracy.
Thank you very much, advocates, for that clarification.
are humbled by that. My question is, on the 1st of August, there were demonstrations.
Indeed.
What would you think was the cause of the demonstration?
Well, it's very difficult for me to speculate. I told you that you would not even ask. You would have seen a sea of red in the city. You would have seen ourselves as leadership. We don't do things where we are not leading from the front. Yes. We do not believe in that kind of leadership. But just to emphasize that, I wouldn't know what the cause is, but I've already articulated in my submission that I would only guess that perhaps it was a well choreographed thing to try and create a platform for destabilizing the announcement of a result. Because we were winners. Why would we want anything that disturbs the announcement? And frankly speaking, I was actually not in the city, I was somewhere where I was doing my issue to do with faith. And I had a reasonable confidence that this election, it was just a question of time. We're just waiting for announcement. And at that point, Mr. Mnangagwa was sending emissaries to me to say, let's talk. But I was saying we'll only talk after the announcement of the result. I was looking for you because I was clear that we have won. And he now wants to kiss me because I've managed to win. I said, we wanted a hug and a kiss before. You turned it down. Now let's wait for the result. We'll then discuss after the result. And you will see that he actually sent a tweet to that effect that he's been trying to get in touch with.
Demonstrators themselves, according to evidence that is available, were putting on the MDC regalia, and they had t-shirts printed your name, and they were chanting slogans, we want Chamisa, and they were also saying our vote has been stolen. Would you allude those to have been members of any other political party other than MDC?
Well, first thing, leaders don't choose supporters. Supporters choose leaders. So I wouldn't know who Mr. Mugabe, for example, shockingly said on television that he was going to vote for me. But I was so shocked because I didn't expect to have that kind of a vote. But I could not run away from the vote because you don't choose voters. Voters choose you as a leader. So for me to know who was in town, who was demonstrating, and they were saying, we believe in Chamisa, it might have been even people who were genuinely believing that because there were two major candidates, Mr. Mnangagwa and Mr. Chamisa. And in Harare, if you drop a stone, 98% you hit an MDC supporter. It's a fact, it's not. So I wouldn't know, somebody who sympathizes with the MDC. But I wouldn't know who was there, was protesting or who was demonstrating. Those who were demonstrating and protesting were not doing so at the instruction of the MDC, or at the instruction of his president, or at the instruction of his organs. If anything, we're all preoccupied with making sure that we have all the V11s in place. We have also validated our parallel voter tabulation, which we already had, but we wanted them to see the proper V11 in the various polling stations. So the center of focus was polling stations, not the CBD. But the CBD was not in any way going to help us in making sure that we would get the security of the result and the security of the vote. I'm sure you answered.
Yeah, I'm answered. But just one question. If we say these people were not MDC supporters, why, maybe just clarify, why would you think ZANU PF supporters would then go and destroy their party premises, go and destroy their cars?
Well, I would say it might not have been ZANU PF. It might have been people sent by other individual forces who wanted to justify instability, to justify the killing of innocent people, for a broader strategy, which I don't know what it was. But the bottom line is that I would not authoritatively say that these were MDC supporters.
I have no further questions.
And just also say, well, look, I would not choose to define or confine your mind. But I think in asking the question about demonstrators, you must also ask about the killers. Demonstrators are supposed to be dealt with in terms of the law. If they broke the law, they must be arrested. But you must also, they must not be killed. Life is so sacrosanct, it's precious. And I think the center of focus, if we are to honor those who died, is to say who killed those who died. Including women who were shot in the back. It was not even a frontal attack. It was in the back to show that they were actually running away. And just as a matter of fact, Madam President of the Law Society, I can tell you this. Not a single MDC supporter, as we know in the structure, was part of the victims. These were innocent people who were just in the citizen, who were assuming that it was MDC, as I have heard from certain people who want to advance theory. Why would MDC hire people, bring demonstrators, shoot at them, kill them, to achieve what? Why? Honestly, for what? We have never used the blood as the fuel to drive us. And we will never use blood as a reason to be in power. Never. That will not happen. I can tell you, not just as a politician, but as a man of faith. That's why I use the Bible. Because one other thing you must know is that I am a man of my faith, the Christian faith. And I'm not ashamed of it. When I say I believe in this word, I believe in the word. I don't believe in spilling blood. I don't believe in killing. I don't believe in violence. It is against my faith as it is against my creed, as it is against my belief. I don't
Thank you very much, Mr. Chamisa.
Thank you.
This is my first time of seeing you in person.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for the eloquence with which you spoke.
Well, this is not my first time to see you. I've always seen you around. You are a great man of Africa, and thank you for being part of this part.
Thank you very much. One of the most impressive things you said was about MDC being a party that respects the law.
Indeed.
And always acts in the course of law. I take it that now that the Constitutional Court has made a pronouncement that in keeping with MDC's loyalty to law, that you will accept the pronouncement of the Constitutional Law. And in that context, I was also very impressed by what you said about being ready for dialogue. Did I understand you correctly to say that MDC and you personally as the leader of MDC are ready for dialogue in order to heal the nation?
In fact, we have made a resolution, Honorable Secretary General, to say for Zimbabwe to move forward. We have an African saying that says, Zanza Zilogeza.
But isn't there an element of contradiction in saying that you are an extremely law-abiding party, but at the same time does not respect the pronouncement of the Constitutional Court?
We respect the pronouncement of the Constitutional Court. In fact, as an advocate, I'm an officer of the court. But the Constitutional Court is a court of law and a court of justice. It is not a court of politics. Politics is about legitimacy. And our contention is based on legitimacy. We have the right to say that, Mr. Mnangagwa, you are not legitimate because of the result we have. Yes, we acknowledge the Constitutional Court. Yes, we have taken note of the verdict, but we also have the right to disagree with the court because it's allowed, it's permissible. It does not subtract from our rule of law instinct and our rule of law character. We continue to be so, but we have a legitimate issue arising out of an election result, which we know by fact and by truth that it did not give Mr. Mnangagwa victory. And I've heard this thing to say, but how did Mr. Mnangagwa's party get 2/3 and your party did not get 2/3? Even if you look at the vote, a lot of the people who voted for me were voting for Zanzibar at parliamentary level in some cases, but they would vote for me in the presidential. So the tally of the presidential, we had more votes than Mr. Mnangagwa, who had half the votes to the vote of his parliamentarians, even by the results that are.
Yes, but wouldn't you agree that internationally, that the pronouncement of the highest court in any land is to be respected and accepted by everyone who is law-abiding?
Well, it has to be honored, it has to be respected. That's why we have said the Constitutional Court has ruled. We acknowledge their decision, but we still have political legitimacy issues that have to be resolved. And they can only be resolved through what you have already alluded to, the issue of political dialogue. And that's why we have insisted that political dialogue is the way forward. And we've put on the table a 5-point plan. This is not the first time that there's been political dialogue in this country, especially where there's a disjuncture between the path of law and the path of the reality and the facts on the ground. We need to bring the two together. Honorable President Motlane, you know how you helped us in Pretoria to try and broker an understanding of how to get out of such a political imbroglio or political situation. That is what we are saying. Going forward, we must be able to resolve the legitimate issues away from the courts. We must be able to resolve issues of reform that are comprehensive so that we don't have a repeat and a recurrence of disputes of elections year in, year out. Every election cycle, we are reproducing a vicious cycle of negative politics. We want to deal with that. Let us have a path to nation building, a path to peace building. That is what we have put on the table. Mr. Mnangagwa doesn't seem to have appetite for it. And that's why we are saying we will then use democratic tools to make sure that we bring him to the negotiating table to resolve the political legitimacy issue. Such is our trajectory.
Well, my last comment and question is, being a very distinguished lawyer as you are, and as I have read all about you,
Thank you.
You will agree that the harmony in any country depends on acceptance and respect for the separation of powers between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And countries work best when this separation of powers is accepted and respected. And so in that context, given that the highest court of the land has made a pronouncement, I would have thought that you will agree that for harmony in the country, that the pronouncement of the highest court should be accepted and respected by everyone. And of course, the point you make about dialogue can take place and should take place, but all within the context of acceptance and respect for the pronouncement of the highest court.
Harmony starts with the truth. Harmony starts with the reality. Harmony starts with the state, honoring and respecting that there should be no state-party conflation, the conflation of the party and the state, and the attempt to influence the state and its organs. Those are fundamental issues that would then require a political reform agenda and a constitutional reform agenda. And that is what we have put on the table. If anything, Mr. Mnangagwa must count himself lucky, Honorable Chair, that he is such a young Zimbabwean with peace loving. If I were a trigger-happy young man, there would be a problem in this country. but I've tried to be circumspect, careful, and very careful in what I do, what I say, to keep this country intact. I thought you were going to be congratulating me.
Well, I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised if you, what you said, you've just described yourself. Because when I had the pleasure of meeting Morgan Tsvangirai in 1998, I formed a very good impression of him.
Sure.
And if you are determined to work on his footpath,
Sure.
you should be as good and I hope as mature as he was.
Thank you very much. Just to also say that from what you have said, it is important to understand that it's not possible for the one who claims to be the winner to get the loser's consent by force.
Chamisa, thank you very much. It's been a great honor to have such a listen to your testimony today. I wanted to just ask one or two things. Firstly, going back to right at the beginning, you said you actually saw one of the people who'd been shot the next day.
Indeed.
On the 2nd of August. Where was that? Was that in hospital?
Oh, thank you, Advocate Dixon. It was at a hospital because I visited the victim. I went to the hospital before addressing a press conference, where I was then calling for peace and harmony. I wanted to have an on-spot assessment of the issue. So I went to the hospital at Parenya. I saw the injured. They told me horrendous stories. And all the stories they told me that they had an encounter with the soldiers. And they were not even demonstrating. I went to CSU, where I also met tens of people who were injured on account of what had happened. I actually had to come back to visit this. This was, I think, the following day after the problem. Then I addressed the press conference soon after.
Did this person, because obviously we're trying to get evidence of what happened, did this person tell you anything about how they'd been shot? The one who you saw, who then you say died later?
Well, I didn't go into the details. I was really heartbroken. He just told me that his special organ had actually been ripped apart, and the bullet was still inside. And I could see that the engine was totally destroyed. And I was really worried that, you know, it was a very sad and a sorry sight. So I didn't go into further details, other than the fact that he was very optimistic. He was actually saying that, you know, I'm going to theater, but please come and see me. They want to remove the bullet. The next thing I was told that that person had died, because I then wanted to make a follow-up just to go and check how they were doing.
When you got the call the day before from the Home Affairs Minister, this is on the 1st of August, at that point you said you realized there were some problems brewing. Was there anything that you thought at that stage you could have done maybe to intervene, to stop that situation?
Well, Mr. Dixon, at that stage, like I told you, the only effort I could do was to try and raise the Youth Assembly chairperson, you know, to check if there was an issue. There was nothing as far as they were concerned. So there was nothing that I could do. In fact, I was actually far away. You asked me, where exactly are you, Mr. Chamisa? And I told him that I'm actually out of Harare in Tongosha. He said, oh, really? Okay, that's fine. And that is evidence that is available. There was nothing that I could do because I didn't know what was happening, who was doing. And I thought that perhaps he was just trying to pull something so that I would then be invited to a dialogue. Because at that point in time, I was under the impression that they want to drive me into something to say, please, because they also said, why is Chamisa giving us problems? why can't we just give him money? How much does he want so that he'll be quiet? So I was very cautious of calls that would come from across the other side, and I must be frank on that.
I know you say you weren't in Harare on that day, the 1st of August, but are you able to assist at all? I mean, do you think there were people on that day who thought that the results were being cooked up, or that there was going to be a fake result?
Well, I'm not so sure, but I think the whole nation was anxious. The whole nation was armed with what has happened in the past. I'm sure Professor Maduku would also be equally worried, because the issue of elections in 2008, when results were withheld, would bring some kind of nostalgia and deja vu on the people of Zimbabwe. That, look, perhaps this is now a repeat of what we've seen before, where results, people knew, because people voted, and people know that the result at a polling station had been concluded the very same day, but the election was not announced on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, only to be announced on Friday at night. Now, I know my colleagues in Zambia, if they had won the election, it was going to be announced midnight on Monday, and they were going to be celebrating, but they knew the result. That's why they took so much time to try and think otherwise. I know of a very honorable member who had to sleep with their shoes on because of this result. But I wouldn't want to go there because it's not necessary.
Just one last matter. You mentioned the army and the police in your assessment being very professional.
Sorry?
I said you mentioned the army and the police in your view generally being very professional.
Without politics.
That's what I was going to say, without the intervention of politics.
Sure.
Is there anything that you can help us with as to what recommendations we may be able to consider on that particular issue? What steps could be taken in the future?
Well, that's a very, thank you, Mr. Dixon, for that question. In fact, the first thing we must do is to remove our military from civilian politics, so that we honor our military as our military. The second thing we must do is to make sure that our Zimbabwe National Army moves away from campaigning for a political party and starts campaigning for Zimbabwe, having nothing to do with political parties. Because at the end of the day, political parties have different persuasions, but they all are fighting, not as an anti-state effort, but to make sure that they reconstitute and transform the state. So I would really urge our colleagues, because I know that in the previous election, some of the serving members of our esteemed state institutions were actually campaigning for my colleague E.G. Now, that is a problem. When soldiers campaign for one political party, when we all are supposed to have the equal protection and the security to our sovereignty, because we as the people are the state. And that includes MDC and ZANU-PF. So moving away from partisan politics would be a very important thing.
Thank you again for your testimony.
Thank you.
Advocate, I really want to acknowledge with a lot of respect your recommendations on the way forward. On that way forward, I'm wondering if you have also considered the issue of abuse of women and violence against women that we took note during the election campaign period. And would it be an issue that you would want to speak on with regards to the recommendations and going forward as a country?
Thank you, Doctor. Women are such an important force, but they are also such an important voice. But in this country, there has been a scant regard of women in their vote. And the greatest form of violence against a woman or women or any citizen is to disregard their vote, as has happened in this case. So in order for us to be able to resolve issues going forward, we need to respect the dignity of the woman by allowing more women to be active in politics away from violence sponsored by either the state or by politicians. And it's very important for a lot of political education to go into our politics. And this is why when I assumed the president in my party, I had wanted to meet Mr. Mnangagwa to have ground rules so that we have do's and don'ts. We don't repeat what Mugabe used to do to Mr. Tsvangirai, where he would do, attack Mr. Tsvangirai, where he would victimize Mr. Tsvangirai. I wanted to agree with Mr. Mnangagwa to say, let's have a political fight, but beyond the fight, let's build our country. Nobody is going to build a country single-handedly. We can build our country together. I'm a young man, but I have a very mature heart. A mature heart to bring this country forward. To bring this country together and move it forward. That is what I've always said. And once we do that, I can tell you that we will have more beautiful flowers blossoming in the garden of our country by more women.
Thank you very much, Advocate.
Thank you once again, Advocate, for your testimony. I just want to keep your brain with regards to the electoral system, because I'm aware that post the experience of 2008 elections, there was an agreement that results would be declared within a timeline of 5 days. How do you suggest that should be reduced, particularly with regards to the presidential election? Because as you correctly pointed out, actual results are determined at the polling station. The rest is really addition and collation and tallying. So would perhaps an electronic transmission of, say, cut that timeline short? I know that, having had the experience of having to wait as long as period, 5 days appeared quite reasonable then. But if today that's just too long, I want you to suggest how that process can be short-circuited.
All I would say is, thank you, Honorable President. I think going biometric would be a good solution in terms of the collection of results and validation of results. It would be a good solution on account of the systems having been agreed upon by all the stakeholders, perhaps through a multi-party liaison platform, which platform was not active, by the way, in the previous election. So I suggest that that would be one way forward. Another way forward would be to also make sure that we get our army out of verification and validation of the result or participation in electoral results. I think they must just be given the outcome so that we don't have the selectorate replacing the electorate. When I say the selectorate, I mean the securocrats in particular. They are supposed to simply respect what the people they voted for, not massage it, not seek to change it, or marinate it for certain of the objectives. Thank you, Honorable President. I'm sure I did justice to your question. It's very difficult to do justice to Mr. President's question.
Thank you once again. We will, as a commission in our report, try and make specific recommendations with regards to the electoral system. And hopefully that would shorten the waiting period. But once again, we are honored to have you, sir. With no further questions, you may step down. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. We hope to also provide some DVDs that are going to be very useful, especially just articulating, I've heard that there's a problem, Honorable President, in understanding when you say that we are going to defend the vote. Defending the vote for us is about the integrity of that vote, the sanctity of that vote, and it's a constitutional provision. So we also provide DVDs to contextualize some of our submissions in the commission. But I must say, the misgivings we have of the commission, we hope are wrong, because we trust the integrity of commissioners in terms of the final product to help Zimbabweans move forward. We have suffered, and we really want to find an answer and finality to the problems affecting our people. And for us to be able to do this commission will be very useful in giving markers and indications of how this is going to be done. And I want to thank you for your time. We don't take it lightly. I know that you have had to fly all the way from South Africa today in time for this.
That's next door.
Well, but the effort has to be appreciated, Honorable President. I also want to appreciate the Chief. It's not to come and preside over such an important we really appreciate it, Zimbabwe. Thank you in honor of those who perished and who died and their families. We hope that this is going to give some kind of a solace, a catharsis in the healing effect, so that they are able to live a happy life and we're able to stop violence once and for all. But may God bless you. Thank you very much.
Chair of the commission, that was our last witness on the list for today. I will
not the issue for business today, and I propose that immediately.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
President, Thank you, guys. Thank you. Muito aqui, Bel. Okay, that was the Commission of Inquiry. Okay, let me just pass on cable to one of my colleagues. Okay, that was our Commission of Inquiry hearing, where MDC President Nelson Chamisa was giving his submissions today. He spoke quite at length about the need for the commission to focus more on the decision taken by soldiers to shoot the civilians, the 6 civilians who were shot by alleged army military officers. Okay, and then he said that instead of the commission focusing more on who were demonstrating, there is need for it to focus on who gave the directive. Also, he talked a lot on the credibility of the commission. He questioned Manyeruke, Professor Manyeruke, whom he said could not be trusted enough by the public. It is not a matter of her being objective, but it is a matter of what the public will say about the final decision taken by the professor. Okay, my name is Leopold Mnende. You have been following newszimbabwe.com. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Newszim TV. May you please visit our website, www.newszimbabwe.com. I'm going to cut the live feed now, but for more details, you can still get those on our website. Thank you so much.